Sarah, a radiant 30-year-old black woman, stood proudly in front of her newly opened restaurant, inhaling the tantalizing aroma of delicious food. She had spent years meticulously planning every detail, from the menu to the decor. This restaurant was more than just a place to serve food, it was a dream she had built from scratch, a testament to her hard work and sacrifice. However, on the night of its grand opening, the atmosphere of hope was soon marred by the harsh reality she faced. As the doors opened, customers began to pour in. Sarah greeted each one with a warm smile, trying to convey her gratitude to those who came to support her. Yet she couldn't ignore the condescending looks from some people. They glanced at her as if she were an outsider in a place that was supposed to be hers. Her dark skin seemed to be a barrier, making her the target of deep-seated prejudices. That night, a loud, blonde-haired customer started to harass Sarah. "Are you sure you can run this place? You should be working in the kitchen, not here," he sneered, laughing derisively. His words were like a dagger cutting deep. Sarah tried to stay calm, but her blood boiled. She felt as if all her efforts were being dismissed simply because of her skin color. The pain deepened when she realized that despite her restaurant being crafted with love and dedication, some people couldn't see her as its rightful owner. As a black woman, Sarah fought against stereotypes ingrained in society. Society often failed to appreciate the abilities of black people, and that night was a painful reminder of all the biases she faced. "I just want to serve good food and provide a great experience," she replied calmly, though a storm raged inside her. However, her response did not deter the customer. He continued to speak louder, mocking Sarah and belittling her skills. As Sarah tried to continue her work, the feelings of shame and hurt grew heavier. She felt the strange looks from other customers, and some began to join in the laughter, seemingly enjoying her distress. In her heart, Sarah longed for support, hoping someone would stand by her. Instead, she felt isolated. Behind the bar, Maya, one of her servers and also a black woman, saw the situation and felt Sarah's pain. Maya had experienced similar discrimination, and the same hurt now spread through her body. After the troublesome customer left, Maya approached Sarah, her face full of concern. "We can't let them treat us like this. We have to stand up and fight," she said, but Sarah could only nod, feeling a deep despair. With her spirit fading, Sarah closed the restaurant early that night. She retreated to the back, where she could cry without being seen. In the darkness, her tears fell, sliding down her dark cheeks. Why does it have to be this way? She thought, realizing that all her dreams and hopes seemed shattered in an instant. Why was the world so cruel? Why did so many people feel entitled to demean others? The next day, Sarah couldn't shake off the pain. She woke up feeling empty, losing the will to fight. She knew she had to rise, but the hurtful words kept ringing in her ears. Although Sarah loved her restaurant, she felt increasingly doubtful. Was all her struggle in vain? She felt trapped in a web of discrimination deeply rooted in society. Finally, Sarah decided not to let the incident destroy her dream. With a heart full of anger, she began to plan how to fight back. She would show the world that she deserved her place. She would turn this pain into strength, not just for herself, but for everyone who had been hurt by racism. In her mind, she was determined to create a place where everyone, regardless of skin color, could feel welcomed and valued. She realized that this fight was bigger than herself. Every time she looked at her reflection, she was reminded that her dark skin was not a hindrance, but a source of strength. She was a symbol of resilience and courage, and she would not back down. She would fight for justice, for dignity, and for a better future. With fierce determination, Sarah stepped forward, ready to face the challenges ahead, and resolved to prove that while the world might not always be fair, she would be a beacon of hope for herself and those around her. After the painful incident on opening night, Sarah felt trapped in darkness. Every passing second, she pondered over what had happened. With her striking dark skin, she had become accustomed to standing out in many places. However, that night was different. She felt as if all the negative gazes were directed at her, a stark reminder that the world often does not make room for people like her. Maya, her friend and server, tried to console Sarah. "We can do this. We can rise above this," Maya said, attempting to ignite the fading fire within Sarah. "We need to give them a reason to respect us. We need to make our voices heard." Sarah knew Maya was right. She couldn't stay down. Every black woman who had faced racism had shown that they could fight back and change the narrative. With newfound determination, Sarah began planning steps to overcome the discrimination she faced. She not only wanted to prove she could run her restaurant well, but also wanted to challenge the deeply rooted stereotypes in society. Sarah started collecting stories from her community, listening to the experiences of other Black people who had faced similar treatment. Through their stories, she found strength and unity. Every night, after the restaurant closed, Sarah and Maya gathered with some of their friends to discuss. They shared experiences, exchanged strategies, and planned ways to raise awareness about racial discrimination. Sarah felt rejuvenated seeing how many people were ready to fight alongside her. She realized her community was a source of strength that couldn't be ignored. Among the many ideas that surfaced, Sarah felt inspired to host an event at her restaurant celebrating Black culture. She wanted to invite various speakers to share their experiences and educate the community about racism. "We need to give them insight into who we really are," Sarah said, her eyes shining with newfound passion. "We are not just numbers or stereotypes. We are individuals with stories and dreams." As part of her preparations, Sarah began to revamp the restaurant's menu, adding dishes inspired by Black culinary heritage. She wanted to honor their cultural roots. Each dish was a representation of the diversity and beauty of their culture, often overlooked by the wider society. She knew that by showcasing this cultural richness, she could attract attention and change people's perceptions. Maya, always by her side, supported every step Sarah took. They worked tirelessly together, designing posters and social media promotions for the event. Maya emphasized the importance of garnering support from local influencers, particularly those who were also Black. "We need to show that we are not alone in this fight," Maya said passionately. As the day of the event drew near, Sarah felt a mix of excitement and tension. She knew that despite her good intentions, there was a significant risk. Would the community support them, or would they respond with hatred and rejection? In the darkness of the night, as she looked in the mirror, she resolved not to back down. Her dark skin was a symbol of struggle, and she wouldn't let negative voices deter her. Finally, the day of the event arrived. Sarah donned a brightly colored dress that showcased her pride as a Black woman. Every step she took was a step towards courage. She greeted guests with a smile, and as people started to gather, Sarah felt her tension begin to melt away. She knew it was time to show the world that they could unite against racism. Maya stood beside her, reminding Sarah that they were not alone. Together, they were ready to face any challenge that might arise. With a blazing spirit, they opened the event with an inspiring speech, spreading a message of unity and the importance of appreciating diversity. Seeing the crowd of diverse backgrounds, Sarah felt her hope rekindle. Though the struggle was far from over, she knew they would move forward together. Her dark skin was no longer a burden, but a symbol of courage and beauty. The event held at Sarah's restaurant successfully drew a large crowd. The atmosphere was filled with enthusiasm and positive energy, signaling that many supported her efforts to combat racism. Yet, amid the cheerfulness, Sarah couldn't shake the uncertainty that lingered in her heart. Despite the many who came, she knew that there were still individuals who held prejudiced views against Black people. On stage, Sarah stood confidently, dressed in attire that reflected her Black heritage, a bright dress, adorned with traditional motifs. As she spoke, her voice resonated throughout the room. "I am here not just to celebrate food, but to celebrate us, Black people," she declared passionately. She saw attentive faces, some of whom had previously demeaned her. This moment was an opportunity to show that she would not let racism diminish her spirit. After her speech, Sarah invited several speakers from her community to share their stories. One of them was Marcus, a young Black man who spoke about his experiences as a student at a predominantly white university. He recounted how he was often deemed unworthy simply because of his skin color. "We are frequently forced to prove ourselves more than others just because we don't have white skin," he said, his voice filled with emotion. Each story shared touched the hearts of the listeners, including those who had previously belittled Sarah. The community present began to reflect on their actions, and one by one, they realized that existing prejudices not only harmed individuals but also frayed the social fabric. Sarah felt inspired by the bravery of each speaker, and was moved to continue fighting for their voices. As the evening progressed, Sarah noticed positive reactions from the attendees. They laughed, joked, and shared the special dishes she had prepared, showcasing a diversity of flavors and cultures interacting harmoniously. This moment reminded her that food could serve as a bridge connecting people from different backgrounds. However, not everyone attended with good intentions. In a corner of the room, Sarah caught the gaze of a white woman who appeared displeased. The woman whispered to her friend, shaking her head with a dismissive expression. "Do they think they can change people's views just by talking?" her cynical voice carried. Sarah felt her blood boil. But this time she would not let racism stop her. She knew she had to be firm. With courage, Sarah approached them. "Excuse me, but I cannot allow such statements to spoil this precious moment. I want everyone to feel valued here, including you." Her words were firm yet understanding. Other guests began to glance over, offering their support to Sarah. She felt the collective strength of those around her. The woman was taken aback but couldn't hold back her retort. "You think you're better just because you invited some people to listen to your complaints," she snapped, her voice rising. But Sarah stood her ground. "This isn't just about me. It's about all of us. Every individual deserves respect, regardless of their skin color." The conversation drew more attention, and people started gathering around. Sarah felt the support from the guests who wanted to see change. Some began voicing their opinions, condemning the racism and discrimination often hidden behind fake smiles. "We're all here to learn and grow together," one guest said. The mood began to shift in Sarah's favor, proving that she wasn't alone in this fight. After a while, the woman turned away and left the crowd. Sarah felt a mix of relief and exhilaration. This was a small victory, and she knew the fight was far from over. A new truth began to emerge: when one brave voice stands up, others will follow. The night ended warmly. The food was gone, but the sense of unity and courage lingered within everyone. Sarah stood outside her restaurant, watching people leave with smiles on their faces. She felt proud to have been part of the change. Her black skin, once seen as a burden, had become a source of strength and pride. As Sarah closed her restaurant, she realized that tonight was not just about celebrating black culture, but also about paving the way for a better future. With renewed determination, she vowed to continue fighting against racism and discrimination, not only for herself but for everyone who had ever felt undervalued. After the successful celebration at her restaurant, Sarah felt more energized than ever. She sensed the support of the black community, which gave her the strength to move forward. However, the outside world didn't always allow for change. Sarah knew her fight was far from over. The discrimination she faced on opening night was not an isolated incident, but one of many she would encounter as a black woman. The next day, Sarah returned to her restaurant to prepare for the day. Maya was already there, helping to clean and set everything up. While they were getting the kitchen ready, an older white man entered the restaurant, his face displaying an arrogant expression. Without looking at the menu, he coldly said, "I want to speak to the owner." "Where is he?" His voice was filled with entitlement, demanding an immediate response. Maya, ever vigilant, stepped forward and replied kindly, "The owner is here. Her name is Sarah. You can speak with her." The man looked at Maya with disdain and shook his head. "I don't believe it. A restaurant this good couldn't possibly be owned by a black person," he said, unable to accept that a black woman like Sarah could run a successful business. Sarah, hearing the conversation, stepped out of the kitchen and walked confidently toward the man. "I'm Sarah, the owner of this restaurant. How can I help you?" she spoke firmly, showing no signs of being offended, even though her heart was churning. The man looked displeased. He began making snide remarks about the restaurant's quality and how a place like this should be owned by someone more experienced. "You're just a black woman who knows nothing about this business. Maybe you should consider selling this place to someone more deserving," he said condescendingly. Maya felt anger rising within her, but Sarah held her arm, signaling her to stay calm. "I've worked hard to build this place and create a unique experience for every guest. Racism will not stop me from moving forward," Sarah asserted, reaffirming her identity and strength as the restaurant owner. The man was momentarily stunned by Sarah's bravery but did not back down. "It's hard to believe you can manage this. We all know how the world works. Only certain people can achieve true success," he insisted, clinging to his narrow-minded views. Sarah felt a deep sense of anger and injustice. She knew the man's words reflected ingrained racism and unfair stereotypes about black people. Taking a deep breath, she responded, "My success is not just about my skin color, but about the hard work, dedication, and passion I put into this place. If you can't appreciate that, then you don't deserve to be here." As the other guests in the restaurant began to take notice, Sarah felt the strength from her community. Some customers started whispering, nodding, and smiling in support of her. Amid the tension, the positive voices of her supporters began to drown out the man's hatred. Realizing he was surrounded by people who appreciated Sarah, the man decided to leave in shame. "You won't succeed forever," he shouted as he walked out, but Sarah was no longer affected. Instead, she felt more determined to show that she would fight against any form of racism that came her way. After the man left, the atmosphere in the restaurant returned to normal. However, Sarah knew her battle wasn't just against one person but a larger system. With conviction, she addressed the remaining guests. "We all deserve respect and dignity, regardless of our skin color. Let's build a community that supports one another." Maya stood by her side, and they both felt a strong sense of unity. From that moment on, Sarah decided not to focus solely on her restaurant, but also to create a space for deeper discussions about racism and discrimination. She began planning more events involving community members, using her restaurant as a platform to share experiences and raise awareness. With each challenge she faced, Sarah realized she was not alone. She had a community ready to stand with her, fighting for equality and celebrating diversity. Her spirit grew stronger, and she was determined to push for better changes, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever felt marginalized by society. The days at the restaurant continued, each one bringing new challenges. Sarah realized that her struggle didn't end with a single incident. Discrimination and racism often surfaced in more subtle, yet still hurtful, forms. She knew her success as a restaurant owner depended not only on her skills but also on how she and her team handled society's negative perceptions. One afternoon, as the restaurant began to fill with guests, a skeptical-looking white woman entered. Without hesitation, she approached a table and demanded to speak with the manager. Sarah, who happened to be nearby, walked over to her. "Welcome to our restaurant. How can I help you?" Sarah asked warmly. The woman glared at her, and before Sarah could say more, she sneered, "So you're the owner? I can't believe this place is run by a black person. Is the food here really good, or are you just selling false dreams?" Her words felt like a slap to Sarah. Still, she tried to remain calm. "I assure you the food here is delicious. We use the best ingredients and recipes we've developed ourselves," she replied, striving to keep her emotions in check. "All right, let's see. I just want to know if you can actually serve something worthwhile," the woman responded, still condescending. Sarah took a deep breath. She knew many people doubted black women's capabilities, and this was a blatant example of such prejudice. With courage, she decided not to let these words ruin her day. "We are very confident in our food. Would you like to try today's special?" Maya, overhearing the conversation, felt a surge of anger and wanted to defend Sarah. But Sarah gently patted her shoulder. "Let it be. We'll prove ourselves through our actions, not words," she whispered. The woman eventually agreed to order one of the specials. When the food was served, Sarah noticed the skepticism on her face. However, as she tasted the dish, her skeptical expression began to change. After a few bites, the woman fell silent and looked at Sarah with a different gaze. This is actually good," she admitted, her tone begrudgingly impressed. Sarah felt a small victory but knew the journey ahead was long. She wanted to show she was not just a restaurant owner, but also a symbol of strength and success for the black community. After finishing her meal, the woman asked for the bill. On her way out, she looked at Sarah and said, "Maybe I judged you wrong. I'll tell my friends about this place," though not fully accepting. Sarah felt it was a small step in the right direction. Behind the scenes, Sarah spoke with Maya. "This is just one example of the many challenges we face," she said, still feeling the impact of the interaction. "Every time we meet a skeptic, we have the chance to show that racism has no place here." Maya nodded in agreement. "Exactly. We need to keep proving we can succeed. Every guest who comes here is an opportunity to change their perspective." Days went by, and Sarah continued her fight. She not only battled racism outside the restaurant, but also worked to create a positive and inclusive environment for her employees and guests. She began hosting events celebrating black culture, inviting speakers and artists to share their experiences. With each event, she saw her community growing closer. People from various backgrounds started coming to her restaurant, offering support and creating a space for broader discussions about racism and diversity. Though challenges remained, Sarah felt stronger than ever. She knew her fight was not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever felt marginalized. With determination and courage, she committed to continuing her fight against racism and supporting the black community, no matter how difficult the path. As more guests started frequenting her restaurant, Sarah began to feel the positive impact of her efforts. However, along this journey, she realized that not everyone accepted her presence with open arms. Despite the strong support from many, there were still those who rejected her and clung to their narrow-minded views. One evening, the restaurant was bustling with enthusiastic patrons. Sarah felt proud to see the diversity among the guests, who came from various backgrounds, sitting together, laughing and enjoying the lovingly prepared dishes. In the midst of this atmosphere, Sarah decided to host an open session where people could share their experiences of facing discrimination. She invited several community leaders and activists to speak. When the event began, the room filled with voices sharing touching stories. One of the speakers, an elderly black woman, recounted how she had faced discrimination throughout her life. Her voice trembled as she shared her experience of being denied jobs simply because of her skin color. "Every time I see a place like this, I feel a sense of hope," she said with deep emotion. "Hope that we can change the way people think and see," as her voice echoed through the room, capturing everyone's attention. As the event progressed, Sarah felt the pride and spirit of a united community. They shared laughter and tears, reminding each other that they were not alone in this struggle. However, amidst this positive moment, Sarah couldn't ignore the tension brewing outside the restaurant. A few nights later, Sarah received word from Maya that a group of people had gathered outside her restaurant. They were shouting and holding signs filled with hateful words, rejecting the presence of a black-owned establishment. "Get out of this town. This place shouldn't be run by people like you," one of them yelled. Sarah's heart trembled at the sight. Although she had prepared herself for many challenges, seeing such blatant and explicit hatred made her feel threatened. She and Maya rushed outside to try to calm the crowd. "We are here to bring the community together, not to divide it," Sarah shouted, trying to remind them of the importance of unity. But her words seemed to fall on deaf ears. The crowd grew louder, and Sarah could feel the tension rising. They began hurling insults and slurs at Sarah and her employees, humiliating them in front of those who had come to show support. Seeing the situation deteriorate, Sarah felt immense anger and disappointment. "This isn't just about me or this restaurant," she said to Maya. "It's about everyone who has been treated unfairly. We can't let them win with their hatred." Finally, Sarah decided to call on her supporters to stand with her. "We will not back down. We will fight and show that love and community are stronger than hate," she shouted with determination. One by one, the guests in the restaurant began to stand and join her, forming a strong front against the hate. They raised their voices, singing songs of unity and resilience. Their voices echoed, creating a wave of energy that dispelled the tension in the air. As the night ended, despite the group that still opposed them, Sarah felt proud of what they had achieved. Her community had come together, fighting discrimination with love and support. Though the journey was still long, they had shown that racism would not defeat their spirit to live and work together. Sarah knew she had to keep fighting, not just for her restaurant but for everyone affected by discrimination. She was determined to make their voices heard and uphold their rights as part of society. With renewed spirit, she was ready to continue her fight. After that challenging night, Sarah felt more inspired than ever to raise awareness about racism within her community. She realized that changing societal views required more than just confronting prejudices directly. It was essential to create spaces for dialogue and deeper understanding. With the support of Maya and several other community leaders, Sarah began planning a new event aimed at bringing people from diverse backgrounds together to share their experiences. She envisioned creating a platform where marginalized voices could be heard and appreciated. The event, named Community Voices Celebrating Diversity, aimed to feature speakers from various backgrounds, local leaders, artists, and ordinary individuals with compelling stories. Sarah hoped that each invitation would inspire people to discuss their own experiences and build bridges between different cultures. The day of the event arrived, and the restaurant buzzed with excitement. The walls were adorned with posters celebrating diversity, and dishes from various cultures were served to tantalize the guests' palates. Many people gathered, laughing and sharing stories in the corners of the restaurant. As the event commenced, Sarah took the stage to welcome everyone. "Welcome to Community Voices. Tonight is about celebrating our diversity and listening to stories that are often overlooked," she said passionately. One of the first speakers was a young black man named Jamal. He shared his experience growing up in a neighborhood rife with negative stereotypes. "People always see my skin before they see me as an individual. I want to change that narrative," he said. His voice was firm and clear, inspiring many in the audience to reflect. Following several speakers, Sarah introduced a Q&A session, allowing guests to ask questions directly to the speakers. Many bravely shared their personal experiences, touching everyone's hearts. There were stories of loss, courage, and hope. Amidst this positive atmosphere, a woman from the crowd asked, "What can we do to stop racism? How can we make real change?" This question sparked a spirited discussion. The speakers explained that change comes not only from grand gestures but also from everyday actions. They encouraged everyone to become advocates for justice, to speak up when they see injustice, and to support local businesses led by people from diverse backgrounds. As the event continued into the night, Sarah felt proud of the evening's success. She realized that every voice raised had the power to change societal views. The involvement of everyone present, both speakers and audience members, was a crucial step toward equality. After the event concluded, many guests stayed to discuss and share their thoughts. Sarah moved from table to table, listening to each person's experiences. Many expressed gratitude for the opportunity to share and listen. Some even voiced a desire to participate in similar future events. However, amid the celebration, Sarah noticed that not everyone was inspired by the event. Some individuals still held narrow-minded views and were reluctant to embrace diversity. Sarah understood that this was an ongoing challenge, but she was undeterred. With renewed determination, she planned more events like this. She was committed to continually creating spaces where people could listen to and appreciate each other. Sarah knew that the journey wouldn't be easy, but with the support of her community, she believed she could effect meaningful change. That night, as Sarah lay in bed, she reflected on everything that had transpired. She felt optimistic about the future. Although there were still many challenges to face, she knew that each small step toward justice was a step worth taking. Most importantly, she knew she was not alone in this fight. After the Community Voices event, many things began to change at Sarah's restaurant. The event's success caught the attention of the local media, which started covering her story. Articles highlighted themes of diversity, resilience, and how a small restaurant could become a center of change in the community. Sarah was moved when she saw her name and her restaurant featured in the news. However, with the newfound attention, she knew she had to be more cautious. In a world filled with hate, every step she took could be scrutinized, either positively or negatively. One morning, while Sarah was in the kitchen, Maya came in with a worried expression. "Sarah, I've just received some disturbing messages on social media. Some people are angry about the event yesterday," she said, showing her phone filled with negative comments. Some of the comments implied deep-seated racism and hatred. "Why should we support this restaurant just because the owner is black?" one comment read. "This place is for people who don't belong," another added. Sarah's heart trembled. She knew that despite all the good she had done, there would still be people who would try to bring her down. However, she couldn't let fear take over. "We must respond to this hate with love and courage," she told Maya. "I'll make a statement and invite everyone to talk about diversity at our restaurant." Sarah then prepared a new event called a Call to Action. In this event, she invited everyone to discuss the importance of inclusivity and how they could contribute to positive change in the community. She wanted to show that despite the challenges, the community could unite against hatred. When the day of the event arrived, Sarah felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. She knew that many might come with bad intentions, but she also believed that many would come to support. The event began with Sarah delivering the opening speech. "We are gathered here not just to celebrate diversity, but to respond to the hate we face. We will not let the voices of hatred overpower the voices of love and unity," she said passionately. After her speech, Sarah invited several speakers, including community leaders and activists, who spoke about ways to combat racism in everyday life. Each speaker shared ideas and experiences, encouraging the audience to think about what they could do to create a more inclusive environment. However, in the middle of the event, some individuals who opposed diversity showed up. They began to disrupt the event with shouts and placards rejecting the messages being conveyed. Sarah felt the tension rise as the voices of hate resurfaced. But she refused to back down. With newfound courage, she stepped forward. "We are not afraid of hate," she shouted. "We are here to love and support each other. If you cannot accept us, then we will continue to fight for our rights." Hearing these words, many attendees stood up and began to cheer. Positive voices began to replace the hatred, creating a strong sense of solidarity. Sarah witnessed the transformation. In an instant, those present united, raising their voices against hate. One by one, guests started sharing their stories of experiencing or witnessing discrimination. Their voices echoed throughout the room, creating a wave of spirit. As some speakers shared their experiences, the cheers grew louder and Sarah felt a surge of hope in the atmosphere. As the event ended, Sarah felt emotional. Despite the tension, they had shown that hatred would not win. They had built a strong community united in facing racism. As Sarah closed the event, she felt more confident than ever. "We are a strong community, and we will continue to fight for justice and unity. There is no place for hate here." With renewed commitment and growing support, Sarah knew that the struggle would not be easy, but she felt more prepared than ever to face the challenges ahead. She was not only fighting for herself, but for everyone who wanted to see change. After the Call to Action event, Sarah felt a renewed sense of hope in her community. However, she also felt the increasing pressure from those who rejected diversity. Some community members remained dissatisfied with her restaurant's presence and seemed ready to take further action. One morning, when Sarah arrived at her restaurant, she found hateful graffiti scrawled on the exterior walls. "Get the black people out of here, and this restaurant doesn't belong here," were written in bold letters. Seeing this, Sarah's heart broke. All the effort and love she had poured into the restaurant seemed shattered by deep-seated hatred. "This is not just about us," said Maya, standing beside Sarah. "We have to fight this in a stronger way. We can't let them win." Sarah nodded, knowing it was time to take action. She gathered her team and decided to organize a peaceful protest. This event would be an opportunity for everyone who supported diversity to unite and show they were not intimidated by threats. With a burning determination, Sarah promoted the event on social media and through local news outlets. She wanted to show that despite the opposition, there were many people who supported change. Her hope was to draw media attention and amplify their voices. The day of the event arrived, and the atmosphere outside the restaurant was tense. Many people gathered, holding placards declaring support for diversity and love. Love is stronger than hate, and we stand together for justice. Their chants echoed through the streets. However, Sarah also noticed that groups opposing diversity were around, watching and monitoring. Some of them looked angry and ready to act if the protest grew too strong. With tensions rising, Sarah tried to stay calm and focused on the positive message they wanted to convey. She stood in front of the crowd and began to speak. "We are here not for hate, but for love and unity. We want to show that we will not back down from our struggle." Cheers and applause filled the air. But as Sarah spoke, she saw several angry faces among the crowd who opposed diversity. Suddenly, one of them stepped forward and began shouting, "You're all wasting your time. Go back to where you came from." The words shook the crowd and tensions began to escalate. Some people in the protest started shouting back, creating an increasingly heated atmosphere. Sarah felt her heart pounding in her ears. She knew this was a crucial moment. She did not want the situation to descend into chaos. With determination, Sarah stepped forward and spoke again. "We are here to create a space for everyone. Let's talk about this in a better way. We are all human, and we all deserve to be loved and respected." Sarah's words had a profound impact. Slowly, some people from the opposing group began to retreat, while those around her cheered and raised their voices. "We can all live together," shouted an elderly man standing nearby. Ultimately, Sarah and her supporters managed to restore a positive atmosphere. However, the lingering tension served as a constant reminder of the unfinished struggle. After the event ended, Sarah felt exhausted but satisfied. She knew that although they had made progress, the journey was far from over. A few days later, Sarah received news that the group opposing diversity planned a large demonstration in front of her restaurant. She realized that this challenge was not just for her, but for everyone who believed in love and unity. With support from the community, Sarah prepared to face the next challenge. She planned to gather more people, increasing solidarity among those who supported diversity. She knew that this uprising was not just for herself, but for everyone who wanted to see a better world. As Sarah lay in bed that night, she felt a mix of emotions. She didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was certain: she would not give up. This struggle was bigger than her. It was about creating a better future for the generations to come.